Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the third webinar of our Farming Essentials webinar series. For those of you who are new or just coming back for our third one, my name is Lisa Rayner. I'm the Livestock Project Officer for StockSense. And today's is the third one within our series. So this is a reminder of where we are on our journey. So we've done owning and buying a farm, assessing what you want and have, farm layout and essential facilities. And now we're talking about buying your animals, what you need to consider before you make that purchase. Yeah. I guess for those who are waiting or those who are getting in the room, survey time. We've had a few people do it last time. So if you've already done it, good on you. But if you haven't and you're new, it'd be awesome to do a survey. It's just getting an idea of whether we're hitting the mark or not in terms of, I guess, where you guys are, what you guys want, and stuff you'd like to hear, so we can keep running awesome events like this. So that'd be awesome. So I guess if you've already done it, grab a glass of water, get a notepad, pen, get ready for the webinar. But if not, that'd be great if you could just scan the QR code. It should take you to a web page. I think there's about 7 questions, which would be awesome. So thank you. Before we begin and I pass it on to Malcolm to do the introductions, I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered this evening. So I wish to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. So I'm down in Melbourne, so I'm on Wurundjeri country, so Wominjeka everyone. Malcolm, I believe you're also on Wurundjeri country, and James, I think you're on Wadawurrung country?
Yeah,
Up in Ballarat.
that's it.
Beautiful. So just recognizing other people in the room and recognizing anywhere else or the traditional custodians from the people who are attending here today. So Malcolm, I will pass it on to you to take over and get a bit of a review on what tonight's going to look like. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, right. Let's get going. First off, I'm certainly love working with animals, and that's really indicated. So this webinar for me is really good. It's right into my wheelhouse, if you'd like to speak, so to speak. I do like the animals, and there's just some of the animals, particularly I've been working with sheep, cattle, goats, alpacas. That's about it. Bit to do with pigs and also horses. So, okay, next one, thanks. Okay, there's just some of the animals I've been working with. Yep, not all mine. Some of those are though. Okay. Okay, so now the journey, hopefully it's exciting for you guys, but I found the journey of farming and working with animals to be really enjoyable most of the time, not all the times, but most of the time. And the first webinar, we were looking at what people wanted. And then we were looking at the second one, what and how do you assess that, and what have you got there, such as infrastructure as well as the natural part of the farm operation. And we're looking at today what can be as well as what is for those people who've got stock already, which is most of you, I gather. And so what can be, because no use doing all that planning that we've done without actioning those plans. And then, of course, reviewing it. No use having plans if you're not going to have a regular review of those, whether it's yearly or 5-yearly or whatever it may be. But it's very important that you do regularly review your plans. And number one principle I like to work with on this journey, when you're making decisions and when you're doing the actions from those decisions, those plans, you want to enjoy your farming lifestyle, no matter whether you're big or small or business or hobby. It's important to get that enjoyment out of it. And from what I gather, I did definitely most of the time. And everyone I speak to really enjoys that lifestyle. Okay, so number one is plan so that you can more likely to enjoy the lifestyle. Number two, keep it safe and simple. That's my KISS factor, is keep it safe and simple. Most important. And then number three, keep the learning curve steep and get help if you require it. And of course, always you have to manage the money. Now, this evening, we're going to be talking about selecting and assessing and buying stock. And so we've had review of, once again, we're doing the planning of the layout of your farm, the infrastructure, and working with the resources, both natural, human, and financial resources you might have. And we also looked at risk management. Now, there's always risks. The best thing is to manage those risks so that you have less of them and less consequences from them. Okay, so now webinar today is a list of what we're going through. So basically it's about selecting the type of stock you want and the class of stock and the breed of stock or breeds. I dare say most people have got different types of stock on their properties. So we'll be going through that process there in front of us. Okay. Now, most of you would have got stock already, and therefore you've decided what you wanted, and hopefully you've got what you want. But you may be wanting to review because circumstances have changed. You may want to be reviewing what you've got on the farm, finding they're not suitable or they are really suitable, and you're wanting to get more, something like that. So it could be a review. You're not starting out buying up, but it's the same principles apply, and we'll go through that today. Now, we're lucky in the fact that we've got James Gadd here from Elders, who are going to, if you're looking at buying, livestock agents are a fantastic resource to be able to call upon. They're very experienced in stock and buying and selling of stock. So now I'll introduce James Gadd, who's many generations in the livestock industry, mainly on the producer side of things. I know the family background were at the beginnings of the Murray Grey breed. So with that, James, thank you very much for attending and presenting to us. So go ahead.
Thank you, Malcolm. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm James Gadd, livestock agent and auctioneer for Elders in Ballarat. Just tap on the next slide. So just a bit of an agenda of what we're going to run through tonight and some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about. The first bit we'll touch on is administration requirements, get all the back-end business out of the way. Next, we'll touch on assessing the livestock themselves before you go and buy it. And then lastly, we'll touch on buying the livestock, where you can buy them, what's the best option for you and your operation. Next slide. Yeah, so I've been with Elders for about 3 years now, a little bit longer. Been working in the industry for pretty well my whole life, grown up around it, grown up with sheep and cattle on both sides of my family. Whilst I've been at Elders, I've worked in various selling centres across Victoria. Started in Hamilton, went to Bendigo, Yea, and now down here to Ballarat. So my role at Elders is basically I've got a client list of clients, and I market and sell and buy their livestock for them. So I'm there to give advice for them on which way would be the best to go when it comes to buying and selling livestock, and try to get them the best result at the end of the day. Next slide. So first thing we'll touch on today under the administration requirements sort of heading is what is a PIC number and setting one up. So what is a PIC number? PIC number is an 8-digit alphanumerical code allocated to you by Agriculture Victoria. Now, the purpose of a PIC number, it is unique to your parcel of land and yours only. So the purpose of it is for tracing, controlling disease and problems that may be detected in your area. It can also be used for locating the owner of said property in case there is a disease outbreak or something going on that you need to be aware of. How to register for a PIC number. So the little link at the bottom there, which I'm sure can be made available to all of you here today, will take you to the AgVic website, where it's fairly straightforward and following step-by-step, pretty well tutorial, which is a little video I'll show you in a second here. And it'll teach you exactly how to set up your PIC number. Now, your PIC number, you have to have one before you can go and buy livestock, because once they get transferred onto your PIC, that is how sort of the Agriculture Victoria space will know where the animals are located, and just helps with controlling disease or disease outbreak if that was to happen. And you'll click play on that little video and it'll step you through a few things. Is there some noise to the video? Is that coming through? There we go. So that basically just sums up what are the requirements before you need to go and get a PIC. So to put it in perspective, pretty well, if you're going to own animals on your property, you're going to need a PIC number. It's a requirement by law, and before you can even go and buy livestock, you need to make sure that you've got that sorted out. If you're sort of getting a bit lost or confused with the whole situation, again, if you come and see your local agents, I'm sure they can help you out in getting that sorted for you. Anyway, next slide. NLIS, electronic ear tags and traceability. Now, NLIS stands for National Livestock Identification System. What it is basically a unique electronic ear tag. Now, it's only implemented here in Victoria for sheep at the moment, but that will be going nationally in the coming years. Cattle, it is a national requirement for them now. So electronic ear tags, there's two types of electronic ear tags that you'll need. For cattle, there's a white button, which you can see on the left-hand side of the pictures there. That one's for cattle that you've bred yourself. So vendor bred cattle go the white ear tag. So it just means that you have bred the cattle, they've been with you the entire time, and you know what's going on there. The red or the orange tags, they're for post-breeder tags. So they're for animals that you might have bought in or brought to your property and the tag's fallen out. You can go and order those from the AgVic website, or the NLIS website, and that's what you put into the animal's ear once if the other one happens to fall out, so they still have got that traceability. In sheep, it's a little bit different. Sheep, you've got your colour of your ear tags goes by the ear. That's just a little bit of a helping hand in identifying how old the animal may be. And for the post-breeder tag in sheep, they're all pink. So pink doesn't have a requirement to the year. It's just if the vendor bred ear tag has fallen out of the sheep, the pink one is then to be put in. So inside of the ear tag's a little electronic transponder, and it's got a unique code that is unique to that tag and that tag only. So each and every single animal has its own unique identification number and can be identified individually. Lifetime traceability. So the idea of lifetime traceability is pretty much that from the moment that animal is born to the moment that animal dies, it is traceable to wherever it's been in its life. So that's just for helping control disease outbreak and just monitoring the movement of livestock around the country if something wants to happen or break out. Now, there's another little link down there which will take you to a website, and it'll have heaps and heaps of information on everything you need to know about the electronic ear tags and traceability. It is also a requirement before any animals are sold, they have to have an electronic ear tag in their ear. If they do not, you get a bit of a nasty letter from the Department of Agriculture. Next slide. Vendor declaration form. So what are they? Vendor declaration form is it's an A4 size piece of paper. So basically, whenever you want to move livestock off your property, whether it be to the sale yards or to another property, you need to have a vendor declaration signed. So that's basically saying you, the vendor, agreeing that these livestock are going to be moved. It gives a little bit of an outline of the animal health history, what's been going on with the animal, and of the next destination where they need to be headed. So once you've signed all those forms, you get to keep one yourself. One goes to the truck driver, and then the third copy goes to either the purchaser or us as agents at the sale yard. We'll get a copy there as well, and we're not able to sell or move your livestock until we've got a copy of that vendor declaration. So what they're used for, again, it's just another measure for monitoring the movement of livestock, and to say that you, the owner, have agreed for them to be moved where you can get them. Integrity systems. So if you log onto the Integrity Systems website and you've already got your PIC number sorted, you log onto there and put in all the details of your farm and your PIC number and some details about yourself. Then you go through and there's a bit of a quick survey or questionnaire about animal husbandry, the do's and don'ts, what you should be. So it's a livestock production accreditation. So it's basically just saying, giving you a little bit of a questionnaire and helping them out with some knowledge that should be implemented on your farm. There's just a little video here that's probably going to outline a little bit more if we want to play that for everyone. That'll about do it for the video there, I think. So the rest of that video can be found on the link below down there, and it'll outline exactly what to do and how to fill out that vendor declaration to you. So it's true and correct and filled out to the best of your knowledge, just so that everyone can keep track of what's going on along the supply chain. Next slide. Righto, we've got the administration side of things out of the way. Now we're going to move on to more of the livestock focused side of things. So assessing livestock. Now, the number one thing that I look at before I go and buy livestock for any of my clients is the structure of the animal, and I think that's quite integral to making a successful purchase when it comes to buying either sheep, cattle, goats, whatever it may be. The first thing that I'll go and look at before I buy livestock are the feet. Now, the feet hold up the animal. They're what it walks on every single day. It's how it gets around the paddock. It's how it eats. It's how it drinks. Now, if the feet aren't right in the animal, then it's not going to last very long. You can see the top photo there. It's just a little bit of a guide of sort of where you want your animals, what you want your animals' feet to look like, whether it be their stance, their claw, whether it's clawed in or out, how they stand on their feet, and how their legs and structure looks. Now, another sort of section of assessing the livestock is the bone in the livestock. Now, it's a little bit harder to sort of look at the bone with a bit of an untrained eye, but that's what they say, practice makes perfect. You just want to look at the structure of the animal and make sure it's got good solid legs, good solid hips, good solid shoulders. You want the animal to be sound because you want it to last you, or you want your investment to last you a long time. Whether you are breeding or trading, you don't want it to break down on you because that will result in a loss of money. None of us want that. Other overall structure of the animal. It can vary between sheep and cattle. My personal preference, I like cattle with a nice big long flat back, not too high of a tail set. Not too short in the leg, but also not look like they're standing on stilts. Sheep's another one. Nice, big, long, stretchy bodies, good shoulders, good hind quarter. if you're looking for a wool production sheep, nice white bright wool as well, and well crimped if you're going down the merino route. Next slide. Assessing livestock, the temperament. Now, this is a big one for me when it comes to owning livestock, and probably is more to the cattle side of things than the sheep, because you're going to be in a lot more strife if a 500 kilo steer is running towards you versus a 30 kilo lamb. The number one thing that I'll look for before I even start buying the animal, even more so before the structure, is how the animal behaves in the pen before you buy it, or on farm. Now, if it's running around in circles and blowing snot all over you and got its head up looking for you and just looks overall agitated, body twitching and all of that, probably means the animal's uncomfortable in the situation and it's not going to want to stay in that situation. So if you go and put yourself into a situation where you're in there with the animal, it's going to try and take you on. Now, we don't want any of that, because that's how people get hurt. Another crucial factor in sort of, the temperament of the animal is how the animal's been handled previous to you getting to that situation. Now, whether it's an animal you've bred or an animal that you're buying out of the sale yards, how you handle that animal or how someone else handles that animal has a detrimental effect as to how it will grow up behaving, like training dogs or cats, or even bringing up children. What you want to be doing is just handling the animal in a nice, calm manner. You don't want to be hoo-haing at it, shooing it along. You want the animal to be calm. You want yourself to be calm, and that'll transpire to how it behaves as well. If you're nice and calm around the animal, it will be too. Another sort of point of that is handle the animal from a young age if you are breeding it. Be in and around it. Don't isolate yourself from it. The more noise and the more traffic you can have around that animal, the more comfortable it's going to be to those sort of situations, and the less agitated it's going to come. So whether that be in the paddock or in the sale yards, get the animal comfortable with its surroundings and where it's going to be. Now, if you are buying out of the sale yards, again, a livestock agent can be helpful for determining the temperament of an animal. Most of the time, we've handled these animals the day before, so we know which animals are going to be, well behaved and which animals aren't, if that makes sense. Next slide. Buying livestock. So you've gone through the steps of the requirements beforehand. You've gone through assessing the animals that you want to buy, and you've picked out the ones that you want to buy now, but you've got to go and buy them. So there's 3 or 4 sections to this, and the first one being is the sale yard. So where are the sale yards located? Sale yards are located right across the country. Victoria probably has the densest populations of sale yards over Australia. If no matter where you are, you're probably not more than 200 k's away from a major selling centre. How the sale yards work: so a client will consign their livestock to one of the agents at the sale yards. They'll get trucked in either the morning of or the night before. We'll then go through and process and grade the animals, whether it be for sex or weight or breeding. And then we put them in selling pens and rock up the next day. And there's a buying gallery of either farmers or processors that show up to buy the animals, whether that be store or prime animals. From there, you make your purchase at the sale yard. So to purchase at the sale yards, the best thing to do is to go and find yourself a local agent in the area that you do like and you do get along with. We'll be able to help you with this process. Now, sale yards are a live auction, so it's a bit like a property auction. When you bid, you've got to hold your bid and you've got to stick to it. And obviously, the highest bid wins the sale. So if you get there and you get yourself an agent, they can help you in picking out the right pen of animals for you, and they can help you in that bidding process. Because if any of you haven't been there, it can be quite a fast and quick process when it comes to auctioning the pens. It gets along quite quickly, and if you're not keeping up, you're going to miss out. Next slide. Auctions Plus. What is Auctions Plus? So to put it in layman's terms, Auctions Plus is pretty much an eBay for sheep and cattle. So what happens is, and how it works buying and or selling Auctions Plus, a client or a vendor might have a lot that they want to put on Auctions Plus, a lot of livestock. So what will happen is, hang on, am I still here? Yep. So what happens is we'll go out, or an accredited Auctions Plus assessor will go out onto the farm and assess the livestock. Now you have to go through a number of days of training and parallel assessments with an accredited assessor before you can just go and put livestock up there for sale. So it sort of takes out the anybody putting things up, and there's a lot of requirements and standards that you have to be held to before you can go and put things up there. So they're assessed, there's photos taken, all the details, whether it be age, breeding, bloodlines, what have it, you name it, it gets put up there. And then, you know, on a Tuesday, there's a sheep and a lamb market on Auctions Plus, and on a Friday, there's cattle, whether it be older cattle, younger cattle. And there's Auctions Plus has a number of different sales, and it's not even just restricted to livestock. They've got machinery sales, property sales, all sorts of things going on there. Anyway, when it comes to buying on Auctions Plus, so Auctions Plus is running a helmsman sort of auction, so it's a bit different to your sale yard. So all the lots are put up for auction at once, and you can bid on any lot you want at any time you want. So there's a timer running, and once the timer hits a certain time, it'll start counting down. And once there's no activities on any of the lots, the auction will finish, and if you've got the highest bid, you'll be the successful purchaser. Again, to buy on Auctions Plus, go and grab yourself an agent. They've got an Auctions Plus ID. They're logged in. If you've set yourself up with an account, all the payments and things can be set back through that agency, and then it keeps it all nice and simple for everyone on both ends. Next slide. Private sales. So a private sale is, say I've got a client that's got 100 lambs to sell, and you want to buy 100 lambs. Now what I can do is put you two together and be the middleman of communication, and we can talk and agree on a price, and basically just go straight from one farm to the other. So not going through the sale yards, not going through Auctions Plus. And then what we do is we draw up a contract, both parties sign and agree on it, and then we take it back to the office and process the sale, organise transport from one property to the other. Why they're useful? Well, a lot of people will prefer a private sale because, one, they don't have to pay cartage into the sale yards. Two, they don't have to pay sale yard fees. Three, it's a lot less stressful on the animal, and this is probably the number one. The animal's not getting put into the yards, onto a truck, off the truck, through the sale yards, back onto a truck, and then to its final destination. The animal's literally just getting loaded and then unloaded. So it's a lot less stress on the animal. It's less time off food and water for them. And it sort of helps with them overall, whether it be a fat lamb you're wanting to go forward with, it's less stress on it, less time off feed, so it's less of a check that it cops in its growing process. Next slide. So now we go on to trading versus breeding. So it's really going to depend on what your situation is, how your farm's set up, and sort of the operation that you want to run. And I'll run you through a few pros and cons of each. So when you're breeding, obviously you've got to go and buy your breeding stock. That can be a bit of an expensive outlay. Not only do you need your breeding stock, but you need either a bull or a ram to join the animals too. Once you've got your bull or ram, obviously you've got a specific joining period when you want to join your cattle or your sheep. And so once that period's over, you've got to have another spot on your farm to keep that animal separate, so it's not in there continuously joining them all the time. Some of the pros of breeding stock: once you've put that initial payment down or bought your breeding stock, after that you're really just putting animal health treatments into the progeny of those either cattle or sheep. So you're not outlaying huge money buying animals and then taking the punt that the market's going to go with you and that you're going to turn a profit out the other end. So you've just got your animal health treatments that go into it, and as animal husbandry that goes along with it all before you sell them at the other end. So the margin would probably be a lot bigger, but the outlay and the time that it takes to not only get the animals pregnant, calve or lamb them down, then grow them out and sell them, it's a bit of a longer process. Whereas with trading, so you go into a set of sale yards and you buy the animal already done for you. Now you're going to pay a little bit more for it, but a lot of the hard work's done for you. Now you're going to take that animal home, fatten it up, and then take it back and sell it. So probably the number one thing when trading is buying the animal at the right price to start with. You don't want to go in and spend all your money and then work out that you can only sell it for the same amount at the other end after all that time and hard work. A lot less infrastructure is needed for trading animals. And you can obviously do it a lot more frequently than what you can breeding. So breeding's usually a yearly cycle, whereas trading you could do 2, 3, 4, as many trades as you want a year, as long as it's working out for you. So yeah, overall, it's probably best for you to even get your local agent down there and get him to talk you through a few options and try and determine what's going to be best for you and your farm and your operation of what you want to do, whether that be trading or breeding animals. Next slide. Yeah, so a big thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your day to listen to me. I hope that you've taken something useful out of what I've had to say. Now, there's a few links there with a lot more information. It goes into a lot more depth than even what I've covered here today, and they're great assets to you and your farming operation in terms of learning a bit more about the industry and the do's and don'ts and can do's and can't do's. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Really appreciate you taking the time, putting all these resources together and giving time out of your evening to present to us. I think it's really good hearing from a livestock agent. As you said during your presentation, it's probably someone that you're going to be interacting with for a lot of the trying to make those big decisions when you're buying stock. So it's really good to hear from someone with that sort of experience. We've just got one question. I think someone with, I guess, the anthrax outbreaks in Shepparton, when you're talking about PICs and traceability and vendor declarations, they just ask who actually checks the past movement of livestock. So say if, I guess, there was someone who's traded or have moved through that area, is that Agriculture Victoria who checks that, or is it?
Yeah, the Department of Ag, the DPI. So yeah, they go through and once there's an outbreak like that, they go through and they go back to where it started and trace back its origins and everything that's come in between it and everything else, and they chase down in every different direction where it possibly could be or could have gotten. So yeah, that's them that have access to that information, which is a government agency, and yeah, it's no different to the police having access to where you live and what your name is, essentially.
Yep, beautiful. I think if anyone wants to reach out to, we've got Malcolm's.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
James, what other sort of services do you do for clients? Say if they're selling their animals, can you come out and check their animals and sort their animals for them and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you might be able to do for them? Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm out on farm personally most days. We've got a sale day on a Tuesday, and I'm in there Monday afternoon and Tuesday. But the rest of the week, I'm out on farm with clients, whether it be going to just even simply look at their livestock and make a bit of a plan of when and where we should sell them. We're also available on the phone at any time just for a simple market update or insight. And if you're needing help with anything regarding your animals on the farm, we're always happy to pop out and just give you some advice and set you on the right track and just make sure that you're well and truly covered and all over what you're doing or what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And we're always happy to lend you a hand in that way, definitely.
And we've just got another question come through. Did you have another question, Malcolm?
No, that's fine. Thanks, James.
It's a, do agents deal with hobby farmers wishing to purchase a pair of animals? So I'm guessing if someone's just wanting to have that 1, 2, 3, maybe, less than 10 animals, a really small grouping, do livestock agents help in that respect, or is it you've got to have a certain number?
No, there's no certain number required at all. Whether you're buying one sheep, one cow, whatever it may be, we can help. Services are probably going to be a little bit different to someone who's got 5,000 sheep versus someone that's got 5 sheep, but we're definitely there to help them and help them on their journey in any way they need it too. In terms of cattle, it's probably easier to buy smaller numbers of cattle than it is sheep, but we can facilitate that and make that work. You just got to get in and talk to us, and we're always happy to lend a hand and help out where it may be needed.
We keep getting questions in. We're gonna ask you questions for the rest of the night.
That's right.
I guess they said, how are beef prices at the moment? Have they risen in price? So I guess that's a bit of a market update.
Yeah, definitely. So beef prices at the moment, well, we've come a long way from where we were probably 8 months ago. If you go back even 2 years before that or a year and a half before that, we were at record highs and everyone was flying through the motions with a great big smile on their face. And obviously we copped that rather large correction due to mainly a big overreaction of the fear of an oncoming drought, which we sort of saw with some late December rain that wasn't going to be the case. So from that, pretty well we hit the new year running. Prices have come up a long way. In some cases lifted $2 a kilo live weight on the cattle front in terms of steers there. And a lot of the prices that we were seeing 6 months ago, we're a long way away from those, and they've gone a long way in the right direction. They're probably at a level now that's reasonably sustainable for producers, where if you go back 6 months ago, it was nearly costing some people more to produce the animal than they were actually getting paid for. So that's why it was getting a little bit hard on people. And when they saw the prices at the supermarkets, they were struggling to see where the money was going. But yeah, the prices now are certainly a lot better in the cattle industry, and hopefully it's only onwards and upwards from here.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, James. If anyone wants to reach out to you, you've added your contact numbers and your email there. So I guess if
Yep.
anyone wants to buy or sell livestock or wants to reach out to James because looking to buy something or wanted to get an assessment of what they can do, I guess, in their farming operation, feel free
Yep.
to reach out. And thank you so much for making the time. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your night.
Will do. Thank you very much, everyone.
Beautiful. I guess we'll pass it on to Malcolm, take you for, I guess, giving a breeder's perspective.
Okay, so yep, it's all part of that. Thank you very much, James, for that. I've used agents all through my farming life and find them very handy. And it certainly helps though if you do know your animals yourself and as well. So okay, so let's get on to the next section. Next slide, thanks. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at making decisions about type, class, and breed. Now, once again, you've mostly made your decision already, but let's take this as if you have done that, let's take all this as a review of what you're running and whether you're running it successfully or whether it's got problems because the climate doesn't suit them, or your training and you might have a breeding enterprise but find it's too much, and for various reasons. So let's have a look at how you go about making those decisions and why you make those decisions. Okay, first off, everyone makes a decision on what they want. We're very lucky in this country in the fact that we've got choice. A lot of countries don't have the choice, and they don't have our fantastic amount of land. And as regards even our political side of things, we've got a safe, a secure community, and it's so much easier here than a lot of countries. So we're spoilt in that way, but it still comes down to what you want. If you get what you want, you're more likely to do a good job with it rather than what you possibly need. Okay, so that's number one. And then what you have, which we looked at as regards resources, we'll go on to that. And then we've got to look at the stock and the hobby, which James just sort of covered a fair bit. And we just have another aspect from the farming point of view of those two differences. Okay, next slide, thanks. Okay, now as regards the hobby farm, okay, now these are some suggestions on what people are looking at, basing their decisions on, what they like and what they want. It's usually, if they like the look of them, it's the first part. It's that attraction of the looks before anything else comes into it. And with hobby, because you're short of time, you possibly haven't got the experience and everything else with stock, you want it easy to manage. And nice, quiet cattle are much easier to manage than bad temperament animals. So I'm with James. It's very important that temperament's number one, and that goes along with that KISS principle as well, keeping it safe and simple. You're far more likely to enjoy your hobby. So easy to manage is right up there, what I've found. It can be, your decisions could be based on, with your research, the story about those particular animals, those particular type of animals or the breed of animals. Did you like that? It might be a heritage breed. It might be something that's really very popular. The story of like the Angus are at the moment down south. And it might be a previous association. You've got a relative that used to visit the farms, or you might have grown up on a farm like my kids did. So they, they made that previous association. And I'd love you to put in the, what is it? Share in the
Q&A section.
Q&A section. If you've got any other reasons what you base your decisions on, if you're hobby farming. Okay, so getting on to the next one. Stock for a business. Now, with hobby farmers, they can be very serious about their hobby. And there's a lot of people that have got a hobby but have turned it into a business or have started off with a business. There's a lot of advantages about having livestock as a business from the point of view of taxation, that sort of stuff like that, as well as it's what you want. You want it to be business. You want it to help pay for your hobby, if you like, from that point of view. And as we discussed in previous webinars, you need to manage your money because it can be a real money pit, farming, generally speaking, let alone a hobby farm. Okay, so once again, with a business, you go for that, what you like and what you want. I put coat colour there as an important thing, industry. I'll cover that a bit later on, but it seems to be a selection of things that people have. Temperament. I'm with James with that. It's so important, temperament. I have it always when I'm running workshop on selection of livestock. It's always about temperament. It's being the number one. Performance. Now with business, you want the animals to be able to perform for you. Now that may be weight gain and carcass characteristics if you're in a finishing business, or you're in a backgrounding business for feedlots, or if you're in for a breeding business enterprise, or a combination of those. So performance is very good from the fertility point of view for a breeding enterprise, for the growth rate and carcass and so on. Okay, and then we've got structure. I'm with James with that. If you want longevity in your animals and you want them to be able to perform, they've got to have good structure. And I think, Lisa, we could include a beef class for the cattle one, beef class structural assessment template.
I'll add that to the resources.
As a resource, yeah. Okay, another thing is, very important to buy your cattle or your sheep or whatever you're buying, goats, for their marketability. Because as James said, you can buy an animal and then you can spend all that time and feed and money and everything else to get them for sale, and you've got a product there that no one wants, you're going to go down the tube, particularly business-wise, very quickly. So you've got to look at the marketability, and then you look at the you can look at the vendor as well, who's selling it. It's much easier if you're doing paddock sales, but find out who's selling what animals, and look at their process of producing those animals, including genetics, etc. Okay, just on that performance and marketability, we liked and had Galloways. We had the biggest registered Galloway herd in the world, about 400 females, and but the market doesn't like them because they've got a coat. They're black and they're polled and everything else. So the market didn't like them. So I learned a lot about marketing. And so we used to have to sell them over the hooks. And then so we got what they didn't have, that hair coat. You were actually selling that. And then we wanted to sell store cattle as well and breeding stock. So we figured out how we decided on having blue roans, which is like those calves behind us, which is a short-horn Galloway cross. We used to put the white short-horn bull over our Galloway cattle, and we produced the blue roans. Now, we used to sell them in the market, and we never got beaten in the market. We always topped the market by $50 to $100 each time. So we're able to commercialise our Galloways that we liked, that we met the market. And then we could see, you got to look forward, and we could see that there was a tidal wave of the black coming in, the Angus coming in. So we switched from the white shorthorn to putting the black Angus over our Galloways and producing what we called the Buchan Blacks, because it was all based in Buchan at the time. And that top black bull is a Buchan black bull. He's not an Angus bull like actually a consultant called Rayner put that up on his selection characteristic as a really good Angus bull. But he's actually 50% Angus, 50% Galloway. So very marketable, because that's what the market wants. Okay, so next slide. Sorry. On the goat sort of thing. Yeah, we bought 600 goats because we had a big blackberry problem. And so what else, that goes into other reasons of why you may want to have particular stock. And I can say we did get some Angora type goats in amongst that lot, and they are not suitable for blackberries. They get caught up in the blackberries and they can die. So we learnt the hard way from that point of view that not to buy Angoras for doing the job that we wanted goats for. Okay, so the Boer goats were much better for that. Okay. Decision-making time still. A big one is your own knowledge and skill level. You don't basically look at those principles again, the 4 principles I'm talking about, and particularly the KISS factor. If you want it simple and safe, I do suggest that you buy the type and class of stock. The breed's not so important, but the class and type of stock that is going to suit your skill levels and knowledge levels. Okay, now and we'll talk a bit more about that a bit later. Availability of skilled service providers such as James, such as vet, and then you've got vets as well, and livestock carriers. And you can, if you've got skilled people, you may not need to have those skills, but there's plenty of skills that you do need to have. And you've got the opportunity of resources to call upon government departments running things like Beef Check, not Beef Check, no, sorry, Better Beef now has been superseded to Better Beef and Best Wool, Best Lamb groups. And I've been in those groups for 25 years, or delivering to those groups for 25 years, and they are a fantastic source of information and training, and you won't get better. All those people that have been in those groups have really improved their operations dramatically. And your local, and usually those groups are in your local area, so things apply to your local environment. Okay, now you're going to base your decisions on land. The land you've got, water, soil, pastures and grazing area, weeds, and climate. Wet. There is a question that came in early pre-webinar such as what sort of sheep would you have in a wet area? And I farmed in a wet area, and I would never. I also farmed in a very dry area where I did have merino sheep. Merino, they like it dry because they produce beautiful wool, but not if you're in a wet area. Devastating from that point of view. Also fly strike and other areas from that point of, with merino sheep or derivatives. So I do not recommend that. They also, their feet, they can have feet troubles as well. So merinos for the drier areas, definitely. So I hope that answers that question. But there are plenty of different breeds of sheep, including shedding sheep, that are suitable for wet areas. And their feet, particularly if they've got black points, it's also suitable from the point of view of, when I mean that, muzzle and feet and so forth are dark or black. And that can be another point of as regards when we talked about weeds. If there's certain weeds like ragwort and St. John's wort and so forth, they can affect pink-skinned animals that haven't got the pigment. They can get photosensitization and it affects their liver and stuff like that. So it's not recommended to have sheep such as Dorsets can be a problem because they've got that pink nose and so forth. And Herefords, if they haven't got that good yellow skin, and same with white shorthorns, if they didn't have a good pigment in them, you can run into trouble. So, okay, next one, thanks. Okay, another thing, stock handling facilities, definitely. I don't recommend anyone who's like, I do a lot of farm assessments for people wanting to buy farms, let alone having just having bought them. I don't recommend having any stock on the place until you can have proper stock handling facilities, because you have a duty of care to those welfare of those animals. And if you haven't got facilities that are suitable, you should not have stock on your farm. And I know everyone's itching to get their favourite stock on their farm, but that's pretty important. Now, stock-proof fences, particularly the boundary fences, are very important, because particularly if you buy in stock and you don't quarantine them and train them to, when you induct them onto your property, they will test all your fences. And the last thing you want is for them to get out onto the road. You imagine a black animal, and I've had this happen because a tree fell over a fence. A couple of my black animals got out onto the road, and my neighbour hit them in the middle of the night. Now, you can't blame him. He certainly, he can't blame me because the tree fell over, but there's plenty of instances where that can happen. And you can, people can get killed and the animals can also get killed. So I do not, it's important that you have your facilities and infrastructure in good order, stock-proof areas. And that includes for the water as well. Got to make sure that they have got water. But we will be dealing next webinar a lot about induction of animals onto your farm. Now, before you go, I do suggest, and now we've got Google, it's very handy. You can resource a lot of information. Once again, those groups are fantastic. Not only do you learn from so-called experts, but you also get information from other producers in the area. And there's usually a lot of wisdom there. Okay, money as per normally, it's a limited resource. It's always a limited resource. Even if people have got a lot of money, there seems to be limited. Manage it well, and see what the the different options, what the cost benefits are with those different options. Okay, as James mentioned, breeding stock and so forth can set you up a lot. I know someone who's just got really hurt. He's just bought a farm. He bought 75 very good Angus cows and calves, and back 3-in-1s, what we call 3-in-1s, pregnant again. And he paid $4,500 a head for them, for 75. Now, he budgeted and got loans and so forth, budgeted on getting $2,500 for the in the first year for those calves that were at foot, and that's for the steer calves, and for the heifer calves $2,000. And what he ended up getting was $1,000 because of the beef crash. So have your budgets, but have your risk management columns in your budgets, because I have experienced big drops like that, but even worse. So it can be very painful from the money point of view. Now, always time, I don't care whether you're a big farmer, small farmer, hobby farmer, professional farmer, time is always limited. There's always jobs to be done. That list never gets shorter, so you need to prioritise it and buy stock accordingly. For example, you buy trading animals rather than buying breeding animals. There's a lot more involved with that, as I'll show you later.
I have a question.
Yep, go.
I guess when you're talking about, markets drop, and there's changes, I guess in that situation, is it good to talk to someone about, hey, what's my option in terms of holding these animals on my property for, say, 6 months to a year? Like we've seen the market change in terms of beef, I guess, or is it, is it good to talk to someone? Is the recommendation to just sell them at that point and sort of accept that loss, or, hold on to them? I guess what's the options when that sort of thing happens, because it can be a bit shocking when it does.
Yeah, I'd definitely talk to your agent, but I would talk to a consultant. But I'd also take it to your local group and ask their opinions. But I'd also look at online. There are different marketing people that I'm connected to that's experts on marketing, and MLA are good ones for that point of view, Meat and Livestock Australia. They do a lot on marketing potential, for the future. But it's important that, as I said, you put them in your budget and expect it, particularly in the beef industry. The sheep industry less so, but it's subject to its ups and downs, but nothing like the beef.
Yep.
Beef, because we export 70%, and we've got so much competition from Brazil and other countries in the world market. That's why it's so volatile. What happens in Australia, it doesn't influence the prices as much as what happens overseas, as we've just seen. But with sheep, we're the biggest exporter of sheep in the world, and we've got New Zealand's our only competition really for prime lamb, for sheep meat. I've found, and I did a marketing thesis on one of the courses I did. My thesis was on marketing of prime lamb, and it looked good. And I did that in 2000, and it looked good the next, short, medium, and long term, with a few ups and downs, but it looked really good. So we changed our enterprise from breeding 50% cattle, from 80% cattle to 20% sheep to 50-50 sheep and cattle.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was one reason, and we bought in at cheap prices because we did it before everyone else, and we were selling the lambs at 3 times what we paid for their mums.
I guess it's good to talk to someone who's looking at the market, or even a rural financial advisor, to get that sort of broad knowledge across the board.
Well, definitely take in your own considerations. There's a lot in that with your question, and I could talk a whole day on that.
I just thought maybe, I'm thinking about that. I guess what would I do in that situation? And yeah, it is a complex question depending on each person's what decisions they've made.
Well, it's usually based on the amount of feed you've got and what you've got in front of you
Yep.
feed wise. It's based on cash flow, but I keep going on that. But that
we could do a
client
whole another
that
webinar
client
on
I
it.
told you about, he sold his steers for $1,000, but he kept his heifers back, and he's rejoined.
Ah.
He's joined them, and he's going to sell them shortly as joined heifers.
Gotcha.
Because he had the feed to do so, and he was prepared to take the risk on the money also. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So money and time always. Okay. Now there's that list that James gave of animals that you need to have a pick for. You've got to have certain, I think it's a couple of hundred poultry before you have a pick with poultry, but otherwise, if you've got those animals, you should have a pick on your property. Okay, and that's part of my property on that photograph at Buchan in a good year. Okay, you weren't able to narrow up the cattle. Sorry about that. These are very long beef cattle, very long beef cattle. But yep, and you can breed them that way. It's amazing what you can do with genetics. That's one of the really advantages I like about breeding. But the breeds, yep, there's over 100, so I'm not going to go through them all. But basically, you can divide them up into 3 different sections, or I can. Bos Taurus, which is your Hereford, your British breed type of cattle, Angus, Shorthorns, Galloways. Galloways and Highlands and Welsh Blacks are slightly removed. I call them more of a more native breed, hill breeds. And they seem to have a little bit more hybrid vigour than if you cross, say, Angus to Hereford. If you cross a Galloway, for example, to Hereford, I found there's been a little bit more hybrid vigour. Anyway, that's Bos Indicus, the Brahman type, Zebu type cattle, and which are mainly up north. European cattle, the Charolais, they're normally quite often a terminal sire, but there's also the Scimitals, which are dual purpose, produce. But the Charolais, they've bred them to breed them in Australia anyway, not in Europe. They are still way too big and coarse animals. But in Australia, they've really feminised the Charolais. Their females are excellent, and I've seen a lot of those. So with breeding, you can certainly do a lot of things. You've got a lot of choices with that many diversity of breeds that are out there. But there are rare breeds such as the Highlands and the Galloways and the ones that aren't considered to be commercially viable under these, under the commercial situations. But as you said, as I said before, I have been able to commercialise them by crossing with other animals, and so that we could financially survive and do well. And that black bull there, I've got my pointer on it, which no good. You're not seeing that. The black bull, that Boss, he's a Brahman Galloway cross bull, young bull. So you can definitely commercialise the rare breeds, and that's the best way of getting them to survive, actually. Now,
I guess a bit of a clarification, Malcolm. When you talk about Bos Taurus or Bos Indicus, is that because I guess some of them are suited for up north or some of them are suited for different? Why are they separated like that?
They're genetically slightly different strains. They're different strains to cattle.
Yep.
Developed from different. They've got different characteristics.
So
the Bos Indicus are definitely suited for the heat.
Okay, gotcha.
And the Galloway, for example, are suited for Siberia. That's why we were able to sell genetics to Siberia. Okay. Okay, next slide now. Sheep. Once again, there's plenty of breeds, plenty of crossbreds as well. The Merinos I talked about, just beautiful wool, but not for the wet country. And there's a saying that Merinos, once again, they are bred for the best wool you can get, best fibre you can get anywhere. In my opinion, it's fantastic. I did professional wool classing, so It is beautiful stuff, but it if you select it purely for the wool, other things go, such as constitution, feet, and everything else go out of it. Now they've improved it, but they are not the hardiest animal. They haven't got great, strong constitution. From that point of view, some people, there's an old saying that merinos were bred to die. They've certainly improved them dramatically from that point of view, but without sacrificing on the wool. So genetics is great fun. It's really good. You can play God, and yeah, it's really good. Okay, so you've got meat sheep, such as the Dorper they've got here in the photograph. Dorpers, they are, or some people call them hair sheep, but they're shedding sheep effectively. And there's Wiltshires that are similar, they're two good ones that I know of. Now you've got Suffolks for meat sheep, or terminal sires such as Texels and Charolais sheep. That is in South Downs. They were sort of more recognised. They are recognised as terminal sires, whereby you sell them all for meat. So they're really good carcass animals. And then you got Suffolks and Hampshires and Perindales and Cheviots and so like that can be used for maternal as well as for very good carcasses as well. Border Leicesters tend to be a maternal breed. Their carcasses haven't got the muscling that some of the other breeds have, but they have got definitely been bred for the maternal characteristics and crossing with, particularly with the merino sheep. And as regards for the milk ones, I don't have any experience on, except I've heard that East Frisians are good, but I don't have any experience on those. Okay.
Malcolm, would you recommend for that question that you were talking about before in terms of shedding sheep and for that wet area and that sort of thing? Is it so shedding sheep are fine? Is there any of these ones that you'd probably recommend? I guess you didn't say merinos, but I guess if the other for both wool and meat, are they all right to have down in wetter areas?
Yes, they're fine. They've grown up in wet areas. Believe me, Cheviots, Scotland, in the middle of summer, it's damn wet.
Yep. Yep.
And Cheviots, Perindales, they're definitely all suited. Their wool is suitable for wet areas. So you can have wool sheep, but you have the shedding sheep, as I said, and you may have to shear. With shedding sheep, you want to make sure you get ones that do shed well. That means all shedding sheep have basically been bred up from non-shedding sheep. So you need to know how many generations for one of shedding sheep they've got in them and how good they are at shedding. But you will need to shear. I had shedding sheep. I had Wiltshire and I had Dorpers. And Wiltshires I found to be a really good sheep. I preferred them. They were a bit better in the feet than what the Dorpers were, but I dare say now there's getting a lot more around and the feet are getting better in that. But as James said, definitely check the feet out. It's a very important selection criteria. But those two are really good ones. Oh, the Australian white ones are new. They've been bred up as a composite. Australian whites are becoming quite popular, but possibly a bit more for the drier areas. Okay, now goats. You got your different sorts. There's mainly the Sedan ones, but there's horses for courses there. As I said, don't have wool sheep for eating blackberries, and not only again wool mohair and cashmere sheep. They don't tend to be as robust as the meat sheep and like boar goats and so forth are. We export over 1 million goats a year, carcasses in live and carcass form. A lot of those are feral goats and that sort of thing. And we had some feral goats in our lot as well, and they are really good. They're a bit harder than domesticated goats, but bloody goats are Houdinis. They know how to get out of through fences, under fences. I've seen them swimming through fence, underneath the fence, and they love climbing. But they have demolished blackberries from treetop down to ground level. They climb up the trees if they can with this slope. So they're fantastic climbers, but it creates, okay, so breeds wise, you've got a fair choice there, but the Boer one's very popular from the meat point of view. Yep. Okay, good old pigs. You've got your trading. Not much trading goes on, but a little bit does, but just a tiny little bit. Except for the fact that you can have finishing enterprises. That's usually intensive. My nephew's got 3,500 pigs on his farm all the time. They come and go. They contract feeding them effectively. And those breeds for those would be mainly for intensive is large whites and landrace type pigs. They put a lot into the genetics on pigs for intensive use. Now for free range, I had a client that has a very successful paddock to plate free range piggery, and he's got the Wessex British saddlebacks, or the Wessex saddlebacks actually he's got. And the large black is also a good one for that, and the Tamworth. But yeah, they've got different management with pigs, but they seem to be good fertile, and it's usually, particularly free range, it's just about always breeding operations. Okay, then you got alpacas, are fantastic. You can have them for breeding. And guard animals, and you can buy in a couple of wethers for guard for a flock of sheep or goats. We used them so, and they were very good from that point of view. They even looked after my merino flock very well. And some people breed them for their wool. It's only a side product. Excuse alpacas breeders for saying that, in my opinion. Okay, poultries are popular with hobby farmers that want to make a business out of it and help to pay their rates and so forth. I've done business plans for hobby farmers. It does mean that you need to be on the place all the time. They need 24-hour care, whereas cattle and sheep and goats don't need 24-hour care sort of thing. So poultries are really good from that point of view of getting a permit to build a house on, because you need to be there to be able to manage them properly. You've got free range and intensive, of course. It's a totally different business than intensive, but with free range, you've got eggs and meat you can produce, and there's ways of setting up the property and everything else for poultry, and exclusion fencing of vermin is a pretty important one of those, and that's where your alpacas and your Marama dogs can come in handy as well. Okay, horses for courses. People have them for breeding, hobby, and work horses. We used to have 8 stock horses at one stage. Okay, next one, and that horses is in Canada. Okay, now stock needs and wants. Stock need, all classes of stock and all breeds of stock and so forth need water, good clean water, because good clean water can make a difference of 10 to 20% on the performance of your animals. dirty water can even kill your animals, and I've had that happen during a drought, besides being stuck in the dam. So water's very important. They need it, and they also need feed, and we'll cover that, both those aspects again next webinar. But they need feed now. That they do better. They want social contact, and they want shade and shelter. They want low stress handling, as James was saying, and they want, for that to happen, stress on you as well as them, safe and efficient stock handling facilities, and they need to be monitored. Well, they need to be monitored, really, because you've got them contained, you've brought them onto your place, therefore you've got the responsibility. So that could go up into the needs factor. They need to be monitored and treated if necessary, and that therefore you need to be able to know what you're looking at when you're monitoring them. Okay, they'll do a lot better if you supply their wants as well as their needs, and you'll enjoy the number one principle of enjoying the process. Okay, consideration stock feeds, that will vary with the different types of stock you've got. Sheep, cattle, goats, of course, they need different volumes. They need, otherwise, they're pretty much, besides the volume factor, they pretty much need the same stuff, which is basically pasture, good pasture. Goats will have more woodier type plants, okay, such as blackberries. Cattle won't eat blackberries. I've had sheep nibble on blackberries because they haven't had much else to nibble on. But sheep like that nice green young shoot that you've got to keep them off until it gets to longer, to the length that is needed for replenishment of the root system. But sheep will graze at pastures shorter and do like that shorter grass, whereas cattle can handle the rougher, taller stuff. Okay, they're all ruminants, so they basically need the same stuff and produce from cellulose to protein and other facets such as wool, fibre. Okay, stock class size, of course, the bigger they are, the more they need for maintenance, let alone production. And sex, as males tend to grow faster and also are silly enough to have testosterone, whereby they like to fight and use energy prowling up and down the fence line. They may use more for exerting energy, whereas not that females don't. And females need a lot more for reproduction as well as pregnancy and rearing calves. So, and that's that part there. Age, old cattle need, they're not growing, so they don't need the protein for growing, whereas young animals need the protein for growing. Example.
Malcolm, I'm just wanting to give you a bit of an update on time. We've got about 10 minutes left.
Not much. Yep. Okay, I'll get going.
So
then.
we've got a few slides to go.
Okay. So there's a number of those things that will but we'll be more going into that as we go along. Okay. So next slide, thanks. Oh yeah, just with the cold and the heat on there, just obviously animals can, if they haven't got a good thick coat, particularly cattle, if they haven't got a good thick coat, they can use up to 10 to 20% more feed to help energy to help keep warm. And that's been done on trials. So that's a big facet from that thing. Okay, thanks now. Okay, now this is a stock requirements as regards to feed. What's your stocking rate? I always get asked, what's the stocking rate of the property? Therefore, you have to know what class of animal you've got, and you also need to know what feed is available to them, the quality of the feed as well as volume. So that can be all worked out, but there's plenty of information from MLA and AgVic on that, as well as if you go to these groups, able to get to these groups, they can definitely show you that. But we'll have a template spreadsheet in the resource section. Thanks. Yep. Okay. Okay. Now, stock colour. It's a pet thing of mine. When I'm doing workshops on selection, as I said, coat colour comes up number one. But anyway, we'll go on to that. I just wanted to show that's one of my favourite photographs. So I wanted an excuse to put that up. Okay. Next slide. And this is at a client's place in South Australia. We'd sold them the blue roan cattle, which are the ones around behind them. And this cow and calf was amongst them. And that shows you what colour. That's weird. I'd say it's a Simmental cross, but I don't know what the breeding's gone into that. Anyway, coat colour, rather striking and weird. Okay, we're getting back on the temperament now. This photograph is an old one that was in the Weekly Times or Stockland, I can't remember which now, a long time ago. Temperament, it's such an important thing, it's worthwhile talking about this quickly. Temperament's broken up into three different ways as I see it. James handled some of it. One is that animal is protecting its calf. That is a natural instinct, and I don't call that bad temperament. What I call bad temperament is how James described it, an animal with its head up, tearing through, trying to keep away from you. That's a nervous animal. And it's trying to get away from you, and if it can't get away from you, it'll go through you. And that's important. This maternal characteristics, you've got to be careful when you are dealing with cows that have got young calves. Particularly, sheep are okay. The only problem you've got with sheep, particularly with merinos, they'll run away if you come near their young lambs. And they haven't got the mothering instinct as much as other sheep have. But from the point of view of that, so know your animals, their temperament, why they are the way they are. If they're genetically bad-tempered, nervous, get rid of them. Highly dangerous. Okay, so breeding stock, if you're going to do a breeding stock as opposed to training or finishing, go through those are the characteristics. There's a bit of difference, but basically they're the same, but there's not the emphasis on fertility, obviously. But yeah, so okay for that. And they're basically similar for whatever, whether you got cattle, sheep or goats. Okay, except for there's that wool factor. Okay. Next one, thanks. Now this just shows you how much is involved in, that'll come to next webinar, but that just shows you how much is involved in a breeding enterprise. And we go next, thanks. And the aim of a breeding enterprise with your females and your bulls, because that's related genetically and so forth, is to have your females 100%ers. They're 100%ers. They go through that. They have a live calf. They get in calf. They survive through droughts and whatever. They get in calf. They calve easily, and they wean 100% live calves. So, and those particular animals there did that. Yeah, a great story, but it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, that's what you aim for. Okay, next, thanks. Okay, that's just a rundown of goats and what their life cycle and so forth is. So that's for management purposes. Next one, thanks. Okay, don't forget, when you're breeding programs, you concentrate on your females, but genetically you've got to have bulls to produce calves or AI. Don't forget that. That's extra management in those sort of things. Next. Okay, now that's a trading and or finishing enterprise. finishing, you've got to have your dot your T's and dot your I's a fair bit more, but a trading enterprise, main thing about trading enterprise is you buy them in and you sell them out. And when you run short of feed, before you run short of feed, you sell them, even if it's at a loss. You keep it simple, keep it safe and simple. Okay. Next one. Other considerations, the overall health of the animal. Do your research before you go buying. If you're looking at the animals, the ones to buy, look at those things, the overall health, etc. But also check out there if there's been any chemical residues, NVD, and make sure on the NVD there is information about those sort of things, and withholding periods. Check for any injury. You do that once you get them onto the farm as well. Okay, with goats and sheep, you can check their ages. Some agents like to fudge a bit on their age. I have sold a pen of 13-year-old, average age of 13-year-old cull cows, cull for age, and the agent got up on the rail and said, "Oh, this is a fantastic pen of young cows, and they look great, and they top the market." And I said to him afterwards, "That's not true, mate. They had an average age of 13. So if you're buying, check out sort of things, check their udders and feet to see if they're if they got saggy, baggy udders. There's a good chance they're not young, so forth, and along with other structure things. But don't forget to ask the agent, ask the vendors. Okay, and set the range. Next one, thanks. Okay, just there was a question as regards compatibility. Sheep, goats, alpacas, cattle can all be run together. And it's advantageous in some way, in most cases. But I do not recommend at any time to run horses because they have different pasture management requirements, or can have. And horses can injure stock, particularly small ones, by running through, kicking them, and even I've had one, I've seen pick up a lamb in its teeth, pick it up, shake it, and throw it away. So I do not recommend it. Pigs, I don't know of anyone else. They may have adult sheep running with them, but I don't like the idea of lambs because pigs are carnivorous and they will can eat anything. Okay. Okay, please. Yeah, I know you're getting sick of these principles, but work it in with your circle of action, and yeah, and don't forget to, next slide, celebrate your successes, review your operation, but do celebrate it and enjoy it, and keep that smile on. And I say that to all my clients. I get a photograph of them on the first day I see them, and they're always smiling. And I say, my job is to keep that smile on your face. But yeah, please use your head to achieve what that heart of yours desires.
I guess, Malcolm, before we move on to talking about what webinar 4 is going to look like, there's 2 questions and we're going to run a little bit over time. But that's all right. We've got a few questions, want them answered. That's why people are here. I've got a question. How often do you recommend cleaning out water troughs? You mentioned talking about that quality of water being really, really important because it might kill your animals. How often do you
That's an
recommend cleaning them?
extreme, but yeah, it happens, and it affects production. Okay, cleaning them out. As I said in one webinar, I use copper sulfate in my troughs summer times to get rid of algae, right? But yeah, on a regular basis, you can do it. How long? It depends on the time of year. Winter time, you'll find you don't have to, unless you find you've got stock getting in there and putting a lot of dirt and shit in there. And that's another good point. If they shit in there, you definitely want to. Oh, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to clean it out. It's a case of monitoring your water, and that's where someone asked about drones. You could water it, check that. Just going around checking your water. Whenever you're putting stock into a new paddock, always check the water and make sure it's clean. And you can go to that paddock. You want to go to that paddock before you put them in anyway, before you move the stock. You want to check the fences are right, the water, and particularly the water's right. Everything's working. Water's flowing into it, water's clean, and you can clean out the trough then if it's dirty.
Gotcha.
But you can't do a set routine.
I guess keep monitoring it is sort of the thing.
You've got to monitor it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So
someone also asked, I guess we'll go into more detail, I guess, probably next week and in webinar 5 when we talk about feed requirements, but someone doesn't really, a little bit confused. I guess it's an industry term, what 1 DSC means when you mean, and when it equals 1 kilo of dry matter. What does that mean in terms of feeding requirements?
So what is 1 kilogram of dry matter needs a definition.
And I guess what 1 DSC means.
And 1 DSC, the other part of that, of course, is what is 1 dry sheep equivalent. That's 1 wether. It's an old term, but it's still used today in a lot of cases. You can use kilojoules of energy in the feed to use, and requirements of animals like a cow might need 80 kilojoules of energy. So you have pastures that will produce good pastures usually got about 12 kilojoules of energy in it. So, but as regards that, it took me 5 years to learn about pastures.
Yeah.
And the measuring term we used was DSEs. But you can look it up online. MLA have got it there. They'll give you the definitions.
Well, I guess we were looking into it, and I guess 1 DSC is 1 wether will eat 1 kilo of dry matter per day, but it will change whether they're pregnant or lactating or whether they're young and growing. And you have to figure out what your part. I think the hardest part when I was looking into that is figuring out how much dry matter you actually have available on your pastures.
That comes with practice. Assessing it with practice. And we did that with the Better Beef group. I do that with my Better Beef group. Whenever we go out in the paddocks, we check out the stock. Assessing the stock, but we're assessing the soil. We're assessing the pastures. Definitely assessing the pastures. How many kilograms of dry matter is in that pasture?
Yep.
That's available.
It's good to talk to maybe your vet and also maybe your rural supply store if you're going to figure out how much you need in terms of bought in feed, not figuring out how much is maybe on your pasture.
No, definitely talk to the people that know your livestock, your stores and so forth, and your vet won't know about your pastures. They're not trained in that.
I guess, yeah, that's true. We've got 2 more questions, I guess. In a paddock, do you treat donkeys the same as horses, or can they actually go with the sheep and cattle?
Okay. Definitely heard of donkeys as a guard animal, so they can go in with the other animals. But I have also seen them kick out at other animals in the paddock. Cool. And I've seen them used for training animals.
Temperament,
for showing.
Right?
You pardon?
I guess temperament, coming back to that temperament question, and that
why
it's
I
important
think
to look for temperament.
It's more, it is a temperament thing. It's jealousy, and they want their food, and they're keeping the other animals away from their food, or the animals away from their food as well. So I personally wouldn't be doing it, but I know people that do it, and they can be quite good. So, yep.
just go into, I guess, what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, good.
Here we are. I guess once you've actually decided on what you're going to buy, this is what we go through for the first few months.
Yes, preparing, making sure everything's right before you get it, get them onto the farm, induction, quarantine, purchase, paperwork, etc. And a pet one of mine is training your stock while you've got them in quarantine and induction. Yep. But we'll be talking about preparing, we'll be talking more about the pastures when we talk about providing their requirements as well. Okay.
I guess those stocking rate calculators that you've mentioned there, I guess they're a help to explain a little bit what DSCs are and what
They will. Yeah.
dry matter and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the ones that I'll send to you, though, spreadsheet ones, they won't. But the MLA will have it there. You'll be able to look it up on the MLA and they'll have a full screen on it.
Yep.
Because feed is for the health of the animal. If they've got are they well fed and well watered, there's not much that usually goes wrong with them.
Yep.
Except for
I guess these are just
except for merinos.
I guess these are just the information and resources. This is all going to be converted into PDF and sent out to everyone. So all these links are clickable if you ever need to require or want to access them. They're always there. They'll usually be at the end of most of our webinars. And the recording of this is going to be sent out on Friday with all of the resources, any sort of extra tidbits, and also that Excel sheet that you mentioned, Malcolm, will be sent to that email. I guess if anyone's watching the recording or anyone is watching this later, we've had a few emails come back as invalid. So if you haven't gotten anything by that Saturday morning, reach out to us at stocksense@vff.org.au because we'll fix that up, make sure that the email's all right and dandy and that we can actually get this stuff to you. Is there anything you want to mention about the resources, Malcolm?
No, there's new ones I've put on as regards up-to-date information such as marketing and so forth, such as that anthrax outbreak. 2 sites which where
We mentioned they were in the first slide, so Better Beef, Beef Central and Sheep Central. There's the links on the first slide, so they're really good to stay up to date with any sort of news
they're
going
really
on.
up to. You won't get any better up-to-date information than from those. They're really good, and they cover all of Australia. So
Beautiful.
They're really good ones to get onto. Yep.
Well, thank you everyone for attending and taking the time. Sorry we ran a little bit over, but we wanted to answer those questions that came in. I think that's the whole point of this webinar series, is to answer those particular questions that you might not get answers elsewhere. So I thank James for actually taking the time out of his evening and presenting brilliantly on those subjects. And he's a really good resource, just your livestock agent in general. And thank you, Malcolm, for presenting on and answering all those tricky questions. And we'll see each other next Wednesday.
Yeah, and thank you, Lisa and team from StockSense, VFF. Very much a big help.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you next week.